Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to your AEW Dynamite post-show. And, man, there is a lot to talk about in today's episode, man. We have Kenny Omega taking on Swerve, where the winner is a new number one contender. And if Swerve wins, not only he becomes still the number one contender, but he also becomes EVP. We also get Darby Allin versus Roosh in a no count-out match as well tonight in today's episode. We also see the Death Riders in action against Top Flight and Zeta Steel. We also see Mike Bailey taking on Rocky Romero. We hear from AEW World Champion MJF as well in tonight's episode. We also hear from FTR as well as Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. And we'll talk about all that in today's episode and how I feel about last night's episode of Dynamite as well. But let's get into the night, man. We start off the night with a highly anticipated matchup. It is Kenny Omega taking on Swerve Strickland, where the winner becomes, if Omega wins, becomes a new number one contender for the AEW World title. But if Swerve wins, not only he is still number one contender, but he also becomes EVP. So, the match itself, it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Omega and Swerve, with Prince Nana, who was ringside, attacking Kenny Omega. Swerve was trying to keep the pace of the match, but Omega hits a Hurricane Rana, followed by a running knee. Omega and Swerve then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Omega hitting a moonsault on Swerve for a near fall. Omega then hits a V-trigger, but Swerve gets up, tries to get some offense in by hitting an avalanche angle slam off the top rope on Omega. Omega and Swerve then both exchange once again, with Omega hitting two Snapdragon suplexes on Swerve in the middle of the ring. Omega then goes for a Snapdragon suplex off the apron on Swerve, but Swerve grabs the referee's shirt, and then Swerve hits a low blow with the referee being distracted. Swerve and Omega fight on the outside, with Swerve hitting a pile driver on Omega off the barricade. Swerve then hits a powerbomb on Omega for a near fall in the middle of the ring, but Omega gets up, hits a roll-up for a near fall. Swerve then hits a house call, followed by a Swerve stomp on Omega. Swerve then hits another Swerve stomp for a near fall, followed by a power slam on Omega for a near fall. Omega gets up, hits two V-triggers on Swerve Strickland, but Swerve gets up, hits a devastating vertebreaker in the middle of the ring on Omega for a near fall. Omega then hits a jumping knee, followed by a V-trigger, and then Omega hits his signature one-winged angel on Swerve Strickland in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match and new number one contender to MJF's AEW World title is Kenny Omega. Hats off to Kenny Omega for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a six-man tag team matchup, or a mixed tag team matchup. It is the Death Riders, Jon Moxley, Daniel Garcia, and Marina Shafir, taking on Top Flight and Zeta Steel. The match itself, I thought, was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams, with the Death Riders keeping the pace of the match. Zeta Steel hits a Hurricane Rana on Marina. Wheeler Yuta, who was ringside during this match, ends up hitting a running knee on Christopher Daniels. Garcia then applies a Dragon Slayer in the middle of the ring, followed by Moxley hitting a foot stomp. Garcia goes for the cover, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Death Riders. Now, after the match, Moxley grabs a microphone. Earlier in the night, we heard from Will Ospreay. Ospreay pretty much calling out Jon Moxley for a matchup at Dynasty. So after the Death Riders matchup, Moxley grabs a microphone and says he knows Ospreay is upset with him. Moxley says that Ospreay can have his match at Dynasty, but Moxley also says that Ospreay needs to watch what he says. Little grudge match here between Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay. And moving on from that, we have Speedball Mike Bailey taking on Rocky Romero. I thought it was a decent match, glorified squash match if you ask me. It was a back-and-forth matchup a little bit between Mike Bailey and Rocky Romero, with Bailey keeping the pace of the match. Bailey lands multiple kicks on Romero in the middle of the ring, followed by Bailey hitting a moonsault to the outside, taking out Romero. Bailey then hits a spin kick, followed by Bailey hitting a moonsault off the top rope into a knee drop, landing on Romero, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match is Speedball Mike Bailey. Hats off to Mike Bailey for getting the win in this matchup. And moving on from that, we hear from AEW World Champion MJF. MJF comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. MJF says he thanks Paige Well, doesn't think Page. He says, thanks to him, Page will never be champion again. MJF then says the match against Page was the easiest match of his career. MJF then talks about being AEW champion, but MJF is quickly interrupted by new number one contender Kenny Omega. Omega comes out to the ring. Omega and MJF get face-to-face, and MJF asks Omega, can I help you? Omega then talks about his nicknames that he has in his wrestling career, whether it's the Cleaner, the Best Bout Machine, or the Wrestling God. Omega then says since MJF likes to call himself the Devil, then Omega will call himself the God of Pro Wrestling. Omega then says the last time that he faced MJF, MJF was the better man. Omega then says he's not going to fall for MJF's bullshit anymore. Omega then says the version of Omega this time around is better than MJF, and MJF knows it. And it looks like it's official. It will be MJF defending the AEW World Championship against Kenny Omega at Dynasty for the AEW title. Some interesting stuff there between MJF and Kenny Omega. And moving on from that, we quickly get interrupted by FTR. Now, FTR come out to the ring, grab a microphone. Now, earlier in the night, we heard from Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. Copeland was talking about what, obviously, FTR did to Beth Copeland at All Out. I believe it was in Toronto. Obviously, there's some hostility there between both Copeland and FTR after what they did to Beth Copeland in the middle of the ring. But Copeland also talks about the personal history that he has with both Dax and Cash. The fact that, he has invited them over to their house. They've trained together. They're best friends. But obviously, they had a huge falling out after what FTR did to Beth Copeland. Copeland then says, in the interview that he had, that he's going to take away the most important prize to FTR, and that's the AEW Tag Team titles. But he also mentions that he's going to end FTR's career. So FTR comes out to the ring with Stokely Hathaway. Hathaway says that you shouldn't care about what Copeland and Cage have to say. Wheeler then grabs a microphone and says they made a choice to cut the dead weight. And because of those choices got them to the AEW Tag Team titles. Wheeler then talks about the history that he's had with Copeland. He also mocks Copeland's family. Wheeler says that Copeland's time has passed. Dax then grabs a microphone and says that FTR are living legends, while Copeland is a shell of his former self. Now, we are getting this tag team matchup between FTR, Copeland, and Cage at Dynasty for the AEW Tag Team titles. And speaking of the tag team division, we had the conglomeration, Orange Cassidy teaming up with Roderick Strong to take on the Dogs, David Finlay, and Clark Connors. Now, before the match even gets started, Orange Cassidy comes out to the ring, but he's quickly attacked by FTR. Roderick Strong then tries to fight off FTR, but the match itself between the conglomeration and the Dogs, it was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams with Roderick Strong and David Finlay both exchanging in the middle of the ring. The conglomeration were keeping the pace of the match with Orange Cassidy hitting a Hurricane Rana on the Dogs, followed by a Stun Dog Millionaire. Roderick Strong then hits a jumping knee, but Clark Connors hits a power slam, and then David Finlay and Clark Connors hit the finish, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Dogs. Hats off to the Dogs for getting the win in this matchup. And moving on from that, we have an AEW Women's Championship matchup where it is Tekla defending the AEW World Title or Women's Championship against Mina Shirakawa. A little bit of a grudge match here. Now, the match itself, I thought was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Tekla and Mina, with Mina keeping the pace of the match. Tekla and Mina both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Mina hitting a running knee on Tekla. Tekla gets up, hits a devastating spear on Mina in the middle of the ring, but Mina then hits a spinning back fist on Tekla. Tekla then takes off her belt, but the referee sees it, grabs the belt. Referee then is distracted. Tekla then reaches for brass knuckles, ends up hitting Mina with the pair of brass knuckles, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still AEW Women's Champion is Tekla. Hats off to Tekla for getting the win in this matchup. And rounding out the night for AEW Dynamite, we have Darby Allin taking on Roosh in a no countout match. Now, the match itself, I thought, was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Darby and Roosh, with Roosh keeping the pace throughout the match. Roosh hits a belly-to-belly off the apron on Darby, but Darby gets up, hits a coffin drop, landing on Roosh. Darby and Roosh then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Darby hitting a code red on Roosh for a near fall. Darby, though, ends up hitting a roll-up on Roosh, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Darby Allin. After the match, you can see Darby Allin walking back to the stage but he's quickly attacked by Mark Davis. Mark Davis quickly hits a pile driver on Darby. The Don Callis family come out to the ring. They end up attacking Darby Allin as well, pretty much trying to take Darby Allin out of the AEW title picture. Couple things I want to talk about with you guys, man, before I get the hell up out of here as far as Dynamite's concerned. Now, was it a good show? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This might actually might be tied with probably one of the worst shows for AEW Dynamite in all of 2026 so far. I don't know what the hell is going on with AEW with these Dynamite episodes as of late, man. I feel like ever since they came out of Revolution, AEW has been the drizzling shits, to be honest with you. Lack of direction, lack of storytelling, lack of booking. They're throwing shit together hoping it would stick, man. I mean, even with last night's episode, you look at a matchup like, man, I mean, hell, you could start with Mike Bailey and Rocky Romero. I don't understand why this match was booked. As far as I'm concerned with Rocky Romero, I thought he had more of a backstage role. I know that he was recently in a 6-man tag team matchup where he teamed up with Trent Beretta and Okada. I also know that he signed a dual contract with AEW as well as New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't need to see Rocky Romero in the ring, bro, to be honest with you. And if I'm being brutally honest, and I hate saying this for fans of Roppongi Vice, I feel like that whole tag team has run its course, bro, to be honest with you. I mean, me personally, as a fan, I'd rather see Trent Beretta teaming up with Chuck Taylor as the best friends, if you guys go back with AEW as far as I do, rather than Roppongi Vice trying to relive their glory days. I'd rather see Rocky Romero in a backstage role, and that's what AEW initially brought him in as. I mean, to me, the Rocky Romero situation is the same way I feel about Jeff Jarrett, and I'm glad that we're not seeing Jeff Jarrett in the ring. I don't know why that match was booked with Mike Bailey. I mean, if I'm being honest, as of right now, I mean, you got Bailey, you have Kevin Knight, you also have Mystico right now as the AEW Trios champions. Right now, we need to start building contenders. If you're going to take the Trios title seriously, which clearly AEW does not, then you need to start building trios to go up against Kevin Knight, Mike Bailey, and Mystico. And now Mystico has signed a dual contract with AEW as well as working with CMML. We need to start building trios to actually have the trios champion defend those titles with. And right now we don't have that. Hence the reason why we got some bullshit match between Mike Bailey and Rocky Romero. And speaking of Romero as well, I'm going to be honest, bro. I mean, 9 times out of 10, people really don't realize that Romero and Trent Beretta are a part of the Don Callis family, because 9 times out of 10, when you see the Don Callis family, you don't really see the likes of Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta. You see Lance Archer, you see El Clone, Hechicero, Okada, Takeshita, Fletcher, and the list goes on. You don't really see the likes of Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta really genuinely involved that much with the Don Callis family. Or they're not even being showcased that much, for that matter. So we have that match that was slapped together, and then we also get the main event with Darby Allin and Roosh. Now, again, I respect the hell out of both Darby Allin and Roosh, and it's great to see Roosh back on Dynamite. It's been a minute. And speaking of trios, you can have LFI with Roosh, Drilistico, and the Beast Mortos going after the trios titles, which, again, I would not be opposed at all to see LFI as the trios champions. At all. But instead, we have Roosh versus Darby Allin in the main event of last night's Dynamite, which I don't understand why this match was booked. I don't understand why AEW said, hey, you know what, we're going to give Roosh to Darby Allin. When Darby Allin, seemingly, since he's been back, ever since he came back from climbing Mount Everest, he's been dealing with the Death Riders and Jon Moxley, and now dealing with, Gabe Kidd and the Dogs. So I don't know how Roosh falls into the category of what he's been dealing with. Now, for Darby, there's 2 things about Darby. Number one, I'm not opposed for Darby to be AEW World Champion, but you got to get away from the Dogs and the Jon Moxley bullshit. You need to have solid challenges and decent competitors that you're going in the ring against. I mean, people like Adam Page or Swerve Strickland, Kenny Omega, Andrade. Those matches need to happen, and Darby needs to go over for him to even remotely be considered as a number 1 contender for the AEW World title, because ever since Darby came back, all he's been dealing with is the Death Riders and now Gabe Kidd and the Dogs. That's it. I mean, Darby Allin recently just had a match, what was it, last week? Against Gabe Kidd in a coffin match. And now we're booking Darby Allin versus Roosh for some apparent reason, which I don't understand why. You know what I mean? It's not like LFI, as far as I'm concerned, is beefing with the conglomeration. Hell, they just had a tag team matchup against the Dogs. So I don't know how Roosh got into the fold to be the main event. And if anything, that match could have started the night where Kenny Omega and Swerve could have ended the night because it had more storyline going into it. And it was more of a main event marquee matchup than a Darby Allin versus Roosh match, if I'm being honest. I felt like AEW was all over the place, man. And to be honest, I mean, you know, we all know when it comes down to AEW, we know their bread and butter at the end of the day is their pay-per-views. And they're substantially long because Tony Khan has a firm belief in quantity over quality. I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity. You can give me 5 strong matches coming out the gate, and the pay-per-view ends no later than 10, 10:30, or 11 o'clock, not 1 o'clock in the morning, and we have 10 to 12 matches that have to, well, at least 3 or 4 of those matches out of the 10 could be main event in AEW Dynamite or Collision. We don't need that many filler matches for a pay-per-view, man. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. We don't need it. And then with Dynamite last night, I mean, it's the same song and dance, bro. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat shit for anybody, and I told you guys that. I mean, if it sucks, it sucks. And last night's episode was horrible. I mean, arguably, like I said earlier in the show, that it might be tied with, or if not worse, than the probably worst AEW Dynamite episode of 2026 so far. And here we are now, get ready to go into April. You know what I mean? Hell, the year's not even remotely even close to being over yet. So, I mean, it's not looking good for AEW, bro. I mean, they come out of these pay-per-views, and it's just lackadaisical booking. We know Paige was going to take time off. We knew it. You know, there's even people saying that Swerve lost against Kenny Omega, and now Swerve is going to team up with Adam Page. Why? Why? No offense. And people are going to say, oh, well, Page, you know, he can't challenge for the AEW World title, but then he can challenge for the AEW Tag Team titles. Well, what about the Continental Championship? What about the TNT title? What about the International title? You know what I mean? Hell, he can be Unified Championship if he wants to merge both titles. He doesn't have to be in a tag team with Swerve. Swerve's a heel right now. And Adam Page is a babyface. He was a babyface when he went into the match against MJF at Revolution. You know, we have Tekla and Mina Shirakawa. That match has basically happened because Toni Storm got written off TV. She was, you know, mysteriously attacked backstage, and she's pretty much going to be off AEW television for the foreseeable future. We might not see Toni Storm again, for what I heard, until 2027. So that's also a huge crutch and letdown for AEW. Because, in my honest opinion, Toni Storm is their biggest star to date. So, obviously, she's taking some significant time off. And now it's time for AEW to start building up superstars, man. Making some of the younger talent into bigger stars. That way they can carry this company now for the next 10, 15 years. I mean, you look at WWE right now. I mean, WWE is sitting on a gold mine right now with Obafemi. I can't sit here and say that AEW has someone like an Obafemi right now in AEW. They don't. Because they don't know how to build younger stars. Right now, Obafemi is one of the biggest things going in all of WWE. I can't sit here and say the same for AEW, bro. And that's not me, you know, sugarcoating shit for WWE or sugarcoating shit for AEW. It's just being honest. You can't sit here and tell me right now, minus Toni Storm, that AEW has another big star that you can compare to Obafemi. They don't. They don't. I mean, Christ, that guy comes out to the ring like a brick shit house, and they chant his name like Goldberg back in 95, 96, or whenever the hell he debuted for WCW. I think it might have been 96 or 97. He was immensely over when Goldberg came in, and now you look at the likes of Obafemi, it's the same deal. I can't sit here and say the same thing for AEW, bro. There's not a standout star right now that's a star that's is you know, coming up the ranks as being a top guy or a top woman for AEW. I can't. And I'm not talking about Toni Storm. She's already well established. I'm talking about a younger star coming into the fold that has a huge name and the fans gravitated towards that individual. We don't have that for AEW. And right now, we're running out of holy shit moments for AEW because we already got all of them leading us up to where we are now. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have it anymore. So it does beg the question, like, who's going to be the next big star for AEW? And then you look at someone like Swerve. I mean, Swerve losing this matchup against Kenny Omega, now what does this do for Swerve? Where does this leave Swerve now? Because Swerve lost the number one contendership. He lost the opportunity to become EVP. So what's next for the likes of Swerve Strickland? You know what I mean? I had pitched an idea about Swerve a while back ago that maybe Swerve needs to entertain the idea of trying to rebuild the Mogul Embassy. Call me crazy, but there's a couple names right now in AEW that you can build a Mogul Embassy around. Sure. Leo Rush, you can bring him in. He's got a whole new character. You could add, him, Kevin Knight, and something were to happen between Kevin Knight and Mike Bailey. Sure. But AEW is also hurting with injuries. I mean, you got Adam Cole out, you have Wardlow out, Britt Baker's nowhere to be found, Camille, I don't know if she's even still employed with the company. You have other talent right now that we haven't seen in quite some time. Keith Lee's been out for 2 goddamn years. We don't know if he's even coming back to the fold of AEW, or they froze time for Keith Lee. So you have names out there right now that are also hurting this company. So when talents take off and dealing with the injuries that AEW's already had, I mean, it does hurt the company because they don't know how to build younger stars. That's just the way it is. And AEW has an abundance of talent, man, from across the board. It's not like they don't have the talent. They just need to put some story behind these talents to build them up. And that's the problem. And that's what AEW lacks the most, is that they can't build off the younger talent. You also have Shelton Benjamin, MVP, and Bobby Lashley, the Hurt Syndicate, out. And they were one of the biggest things going in AEW as well. So again, they're out. So it does beg the question, what's next? And that's the only thing I can think of coming out of last night's episode of AEW Dynamite is what's next. We know Omega is going to challenge MJF. We know Ospreay's challenging Jon Moxley at Dynasty. We know FTR, Copeland, and Cage are having a match for the AEW Tag Team titles at Dynasty. But what's next for Swerve? What's next for Andrade? What's next for, Darby Allin? It seems like Darby Allin now has some unfinished business now with the Don Callis family after, Darby getting his ass kicked by Mark Davis and the Don Callis family. For Darby Allin, bro, I can honestly tell you guys right now, man, Darby Allin was on a hot streak when he was teaming up with Sting. We all remember the times that Darby had with Sting. That match at Revolution might go down as one of the, if not the best match at Revolution of all time. And Sting's retirement match. After that, Sting retired. Darby took some substantial time off, went to go climb Mount Everest, and ever since Darby has came back into the fold, bro, I kind of feel like Darby has been an afterthought. I don't think a lot of people care about what Darby does now more than what he did when he was teaming with Sting. It might be a hot take for a lot of people, bro, but I genuinely feel that way as a fan. I don't know if they know what to do with Darby. I don't even know at this point if they know what to do with Swerve Strickland. Swerve had hyped up this match with Omega. I thought Swerve was going to beat Omega. I thought maybe Swerve had beat Omega, stays number 1 contender, becomes EVP, brings back Page, maybe grant Page an opportunity to face off against the AEW World Championship again. I don't know. But Swerve lost that opportunity, and now we have Kenny Omega challenging MJF for the AEW World title. So where does that leave Page when he comes back? Where does that leave Swerve Strickland? Where does it leave Darby Allin? There's a lot of unanswered questions right now going into even Dynasty at this point. So, we haven't seen Brody King. We have not seen Bandito. I think Bandito is dealing with visa issues at the moment. Again. So, it's just, I feel like AEW right now, bro, is all over the place. There's no, I don't know. I don't even know the right terminology to even use for, honestly, how I feel about Dynamite right now. To be honest with you, I'm kind of speechless, bro, because I feel like it's the same song and dance. It's like the same broken record over and over and over again. And I'm trying to find the good parts about Dynamite, like I told you guys before, bro, but it's hard to find anything that's halfway decent in a show that we got last night. I'm just going to keep it a buck with y'all, man. It's a horrible show. I feel like Tony Khan, once again, doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's delusional. And at the end of the day, their bread and butter is their pay-per-views. That's just the way it is. If you watch AEW pay-per-views, bro, they go all in. They literally go all in. They will give you 10 to 12 matches from, literally, you're watching a pay-per-view from AEW from the hours of 7 o'clock at night, and you're not done until about 1 in the morning. Because they're put on 12, 13, 14, 15 goddamn matches that, like I said, 3 or 4 out of those matches are main events for AEW Dynamite or Collision that don't need to be on the pay-per-views. You know what I mean? It's lackluster, it's lackadaisical booking, and no one gives a shit. Nobody cares. There needs to be a change in AEW. Everybody was hyped up about, they're hiring more talent. Yeah. They brought in Tommaso Ciampa. Great. Why are we not putting Ciampa in the main event scene? Ciampa just had a match on Collision against Leo Rush. This was a guy who was a former TNT champion. If he wants to make an impact, bro, then you need to be in the main event scene. You need to have these high-profile matches. Not bullshitting around on Collision, bro. Collision's an absolute joke. I'm sorry. The only reason why Collision was even ever created was because when CM Punk was there. And he can't be on the same show as the Bucks. That's why Collision was formed. Collision is done, bro. It's just like Ring of Honor. It's the same shit. Nobody cares about Ring of Honor. I'm sorry. And Ring of Honor is definitely a shell of its former self. If we're being honest. Ring of Honor was one of the biggest companies out there before Tony Khan had bought it. The amount of talent that walked through the doors of Ring of Honor, bro, I mean, it is endless. I mean, first ballot Hall of Fame talent that has walked through the doors of Ring of Honor. And they put on some of the greatest matches of all time until Tony Khan had bought it and has damn near killed the brand. I mean, nobody cares about Ring of Honor, man. Honestly. Hell, I think at this point, NWA Power is better than Ring of Honor, if I'm being honest. The company that Billy Corgan's running. I mean, I'm just keeping it a buck, man. I genuinely believe that AEW needs to find that switch, and they need to turn it on. There needs to be change, man. There needs to be excitement. There needs to be storylines. Hell, there's still people waiting to see what Chris Jericho's doing. Jericho's going to WWE. As far as I'm concerned, Jericho's not. I feel like Jericho is on his way back to AEW because he has time frozen on his contract, which is almost going to take up a full year. So I don't see Jericho going anywhere unless somehow he worked out a deal with Tony Khan and Tony Khan's willing to let Jericho go and have Jericho go back to WWE. But for right now, from what I understand, Jericho still has time frozen on his contract with AEW, and I don't think he's going anywhere until at least a year. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, Jericho coming back, I mean, it could be a swing and a miss, or it could be a grand slam. I'm not sitting here saying that it wouldn't be. But they need something, bro. They need something, and they need a spark. And right now, they just don't have it. And these Dynamite episodes, bro, the past couple weeks have been literally nauseating as all hell to watch. So hopefully, AEW can pick up the pace here and we get a little bit more excitement and intrigue for the next couple of Dynamites leading us into Dynasty here in a couple weeks. But with that being said, though, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe, be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.